Good evening, one and all. Hope you're doing well and that your Friday has been productive and that your Saturday will be off to a great start. Alright, we are going to be troubleshooting tonight. Now, this is not necessarily a whole lot of fun to try and do, but honestly, it's very helpful to know. The scene that I've been working with keeps crashing. It got way too complex. I streamed this up until a point of where I could no longer stream it because it kept causing problems. So I was working on my own, trying to get it to finally start working. I came across a couple of major issues, and I've been slowly trying to address them, and the renders are finally starting to take. It went from rendering about with like a 30% efficiency up to maybe about a 70. I'm going to optimize it a little bit more because I want this render to be done faster. And I thought, well, might as well stream this part because the file is getting manageable once again. This has been a great experience to try and learn. No, it's not fun, but it is useful because I think this will solve a lot of my problems moving forward. I want to have complex scenes. Complex scenes are so important. It takes an idea and puts in the quality to help people take it seriously, especially in an age where AI is threatening people, and you want quality, but you don't want it to be overly perfect. You want to see it's been handcrafted, even if it's digital. That takes time, that takes effort, and unfortunately, the world of art and animation has just been... it's been plagued. It has been plagued by a bunch of trivialness. That's why I want it to be as high quality as I can get. I admit, a lot of AI stuff is now getting better, and it's getting harder to compete. I will forever disdain AI, and so I don't care if it takes extra time. I want to master my craft. I want to do well, because in the end, when AI falls apart, and it will, I want to be as skilled as ever. AI cannot replace the skill of a human being. It can take an idea and recycle it over and over again, but never forges something new. Human beings can forge something new-ish. A couple of my ideas are going to require a lot of hands-on work. So hopefully this turns out well. For those that are just coasting through and listening or stop by, much appreciated. If you're watching this somehow afterwards, I hope that you find something meaningful in all of this and that you learn from the whole process. And if you want to participate in these things, we got a competition. Well, not a competition. It's a challenge. The Blender Challenge. Now, for those that don't know, oh, come on. Just a second. Audio got twisted around. Anyway, this is the Blender Challenge. It takes place during the last Friday of each month, or like this month, it, unfortunately, based upon the schedule, it means that it comes out next week, which is probably for the best. So it's going to happen next week. This will be the final one where I'm doing it solo. Now, I'm not saying that it has to be solo, but more like I am not going to try and advertise it as a group activity until I've done it one last time. Then I stitch the works together and say this is what you'll get to experience, and it becomes a promo. But anyway, for today, we're we're going to be working on optimization. So thank you for stopping by, for whoever watches this. And I'm going to be mostly silent for this, unless we have people to come by and ask questions or whatnot. Whale oil beef hooked. Very interesting. Whale oil. You know, we do have quite a bit of whale oil up here in Alaska, but that's mostly for the native Alaskans to be able to enjoy. The rest of us don't really have ready access to whale. How are you doing, Bismaster? He's playing with Legos! Yes, indeed. Still trying to troubleshoot this thing, get a little bit closer to success. Today, I'm optimizing it because I figured out some of the problems. You know, the next row of problems. That means I have to optimize this. So that's what I'm doing for today. How is life down under? Oh my. Life is good. Been busy visiting extended family. Lots of driving. Having to sit down before getting some housework done. Well, I'm glad you're getting a chance to spend time with an extended family. That is always a positive. Hopefully you are... hopefully you got a chance to have some good positive interactions. I know sometimes, depending on the family, sometimes they can be strained, and also a lot of times a lot of the strain can be overlooked. And so hopefully it was a time where it was refreshing and enjoyable. How goes the card game, sir? Honestly, I didn't get much done this week. It's been a hectic week and hot. Also preparing for a family trip to the other side of Australia next week. Well, knowing the size of Australia, that is quite the endeavor. And as I understand, it's like traveling from one side of America to the other. And having lived in Alaska, it's an even further distance for most of the country. So hopefully it's a grand adventure. Still a continent that I want to visit one day. One day. What's the button I'm looking for? It's bevel weight. Select similar. Bevel. Hey, that works. chart. There we go. Right now we are code yellow right now for volcanic activity. We have Mount Spur getting ready to erupt. We don't know how big the eruption is going to be, but if I suddenly go dark for a while and I don't speak or respond to anybody, there is a chance that the volcano got us. Okay, well, it's probably not likely. It's mostly probably going to just be clouds of ash. If it erupts at all. Right now it's doing like soft eruptions. It could be releasing all of its gas, and we may be in the clear. We'll wait and see. But anyway, that's been something that's been happening the last couple of weeks, and it has been on everyone's mind as of late. But it's nothing that anyone's like super concerned about. It's part of living on the Ring of Fire. I won't do a whole lot of promotion of it, but very soon we're going to be having an anniversary stream for Castor Craft, and some bigger projects are going to be unveiled. I would like to have it on International Beaver Day, like it was last year, but it may not. It may be a couple extra days afterwards. But anyway, that's been on the forefront of my mind for the last couple of weeks, and I'm getting close to being able to say yes, we're ready, good to go, but I don't want to do it until I'm at that stage. But anyway, it's been getting close. It has been fun to try and figure out, but it's also stressful. I know, it's like, whoop-de-doo. It's probably going to be minor, you know, nothing too big, too fancy. But you never know. That music piece is wonderful, yes. The music of Skyrim is most elegant. It's very much akin to traditional classical music, which is one of the reasons why I think it stands out so much. I'm glad that people are able to use it without, you know, oh geez, spelling. I'm glad that it's a piece of music that you can, you know, play without getting platforms coming after you. Which is kind of interesting because it is very popular music. When I was at college, it was all the rage. People were listening to it left and right, and people are still listening to it years later. This is an interesting process of trying to clean up the models. What I'm trying to do right now is fix it so that way I can be able to effectively optimize it, and it'll be copied across the entire scene. What I'm doing is I'm editing a linked piece, so thus it'll go to all the trees in this file without, you know, damaging the original piece, which is helpful because I don't want to have to do any destructive work on these Lego pieces, since they are linked across to other scenes. But that being said, I probably do need to optimize it if I'm going to be reusing them over and over again. Ooh, that's not supposed to be there. Almost done with this piece, and then I should be able to look at all of the pieces and make sure that it worked appropriately. I accidentally... Wait. I achieved something of greatness last night. You did? Well, what is this greatness that you have achieved? What sort of legendary acts have you performed? And who was there to bear witness to your greatness? 3 weeks ago, I decided I would sit down and design a deck to get me to Mythic in Magic the Gathering Arena. The deck performed surprisingly well in 1 out of 1 games. Oh, congratulations. That is a tough game to try and master. I got to play it a couple of times when I was in college, but haven't been able to play it since. Mostly because I couldn't actually afford the cards. So I know there's like online that you can do now, no problem. But I downloaded and they kept wanting updates, and I was like, I got too many games to have to update, and so I just didn't bother with it. It is fun, but yeah, it is a bit labor intensive to try and stay on top of it. But again, a very fun game. Whenever I think of card games, I always think of Yu-Gi-Oh! It's amazing how that was a simple game, but the show made it all the more popular. All right, I think that's good to go. I should have copied it across. Check this one right here. Yes. Turn off that. And this one, same thing there. By having all the link stuff, it helps out tremendously. Selected, copy to selected. I'm super chuffed because I didn't just download a deck list from somewhere, but did it with a deck of my own design. You know, back before they had all like these official decks that people used, my brother and I were trying to figure out Pokemon cards. This was back before they got like, you know, super sophisticated. And our big challenge was trying to beat somebody who had access to all the best cards in the game. And we couldn't afford the good decks. So we had to try and figure out how to do it with what we called quick attack decks, which are basically the simplest of cards, optimized in such a way that you could get them out into the field as quickly as possible. It worked out not a whole lot, but it did prove to be successful more times than it probably should have. Then, of course, everyone started getting like official decks, and people then started criticizing, "Oh, you don't have an official deck. That's not. you got no skill whatsoever. Like, no, I'm just here to have fun. I don't need to have the official deck to work with. But it becomes all the more cathartic when you finally do beat somebody and you didn't have an official card deck. And that goes for any game, honestly. If you've done something and no pro has endorsed the build, and then you show everyone that it actually works, it is very cathartic. I did that with League of Legends back in the day. A lot of people were just hating on Volibear. Nobody liked Volibear, the character. Everyone was making fun about how it was the most worthless of tanks, and no one ever thought of it as being a brawler. And all the forums were saying, it's a tank, play as a tank, don't try and play as a brawler. And I got frustrated with that because I didn't like some of the characters that were available. So I latched on to Volibear. And after tinkering with it with several builds, I actually made it into a brawler. And it actually worked. And so many people, though, quit the moment they saw me not put tank items on the build. And they started insulting me. They claimed that I was cheating. Well, not cheating. I was griefing and trying to give the enemy free kills. And the whole time, I was just experimenting with something that they had not considered as being a possibility. Lo and behold, about 6 months later, it became standard issue. Volibear is a brawler. And suddenly, I was one of the few people that saw it coming well before the pros did. But no one remembered it, of course, because in the end, I was never a pro. I noticed it. My friends noticed it. But it was just that cathartic moment of like, yes, it succeeded. Huzzah! Who wants to come over and get my advice on how to do an official brawler build? No one? Oh. Well, at least I learned something. Sending you my card collection. Make me a great commander deck. Yes. It will be the best commander deck you've ever seen. Oh, golly. One day, I would love to get to do some cards again, of some kind. But, I don't know when that is really going to become possible. I got too many projects. And, the only opportunity to do card games is on the other side of town. A long ways away. I don't normally have the time to be able to go over there. And it's for the best. Maybe one day I'll have like a more local group of folks I can be able to do activities with, but yeah, it won't happen for a while. No big problem. I hate having to download this, to downgrade this quality, but it's necessary for this. All right. That was fine. I pretty much primarily do competitive online, but only play Commander in real life. I like playing Magic with people in real life for fun, not to win. You know, competitiveness really starts to disappear when you can face somebody, especially when you play it with people that you're familiar with. Animosity is a little bit harder to grow when you're familiar with the people. At least that's what I've experienced. I got to have a lot of neat opportunities to play games with people. But you know, it wasn't until I started playing online that I noticed the aggression and the anger. It's a shame, really. Too bad that that's kind of how the world behaves on the online spaces. But it makes sense. You don't know the people. For all you know, they're bots. And so it does get a bit aggravating, especially when you come across people that are cheating. When we came across a cheater in the real world, you can call them out. And you know not to play with them. You don't know so much when it's online. It's a big mystery. Though in sport, I was more than happy to be competitive. That's understandable. I know a couple people that probably would say the exact same thing. We're gonna hide this now. Bring back the proxy. Go on to the next branch and double check that this got copied over appropriately. So, let's do this and do this. Wait a second. Okay, so I didn't copy over. Interesting. So, that means is that I'm going to come back over here, turn back on this branch, and correct this. Select my object data and link object data. There we go. I wonder why it is no longer linked. Actually, wait a minute. Before I do that, I need to do that to actually all the branches simultaneously, so that way I speed up the process. So let's bring in all of them. This has been an interesting process, getting to make a short and try and make it as high quality as possible. But man, it is it's been frustrating at times, and I wish I had not taken some shortcuts. I wish I had done it a little slower, so that way I could have avoided some of the problems that I now encounter. Live and learn. Although I do, personally, I tend to find myself doing more learning than I would kind of care to have to deal with. But all the learning's for a reason. You might not necessarily understand it at the time, but it all will make sense eventually. There's a couple of projects that I've worked on in the past when things go really south and causes a ton of problems. Fortunately, those are becoming fewer and farther between. But I do encounter some problems over and over and over again. Sometimes it feels like I'm trying to set up dominoes. You're going to do dominoes, you're going to tip one over, and the whole thing will just go all the way to the end and make a beautiful piece of artwork, do something destructive, like any number of things. But let's say you're trying to build up those dominoes and you knock the first one over and it stops. Dang it. So you reset up the first one. You're like, I don't know how I messed that one up. You tip it over and then it goes 1, 2. And you, like, I thought for certain that this thing would start going from start to finish. Why is it doing this? And so you set it back up and you do it again. It goes to 3 dominoes. What is happening? And because you're looking down the end, towards the end, and there are hundreds of dominoes that are supposed to fall down, and you can't even get past the first few. I feel like that's what life has been like. You're fixing each domino as you're going down the line. You're like, I got hundreds of these things, and it's not working. But you know, you learn perseverance through it. Because I know some people where all the dominoes start to fall into place perfectly. They come across their first problem and they get cold feet and they quit. I would rather struggle and not quit than find success and then quit when I feel like I am I'm ready to take on a big project or something like that. I'd rather learn through the struggle than get it easy. But it does make it, frustrating at times when you have a project that you want to just happen and it just doesn't want to really pan out. All right, so all these pieces are here. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to try... wrong one. Select object data. Okay. So that is a problem. Okay, there we go. Hide that. Now this is the one that did get fixed. Hide that. Object data. Hide that. This gets easier the further you get along with the branches. So we're starting with the biggest ones because that's the easiest. So now if we unhide it, they're all selected. Now we isolate them. Look at this, and copy to selected, copy to selected, copy this, and link object data. There we go. Perfect. So whenever we have to go back and fix it, we can just fix one, and we'll fix them sequentially across all of them. Bring that back, invert the selection, and hide. Now we can grab all these, since it's easier to grab like this. Copy to selected, copy to selected. And now, grab this piece that was correctly done. Link object data. Ta-da! Hide. Isolate this. Okay, so I think... yeah, okay. Copy to selected. Link object data. There we go. All these are the same. That and link object data. Copy to selected and hide. So this animation is has been taking a heck of a long time to finish, and there's some times where I look at it and think, how much longer is it going to be? Well, it's getting very close. Very, very, very close. Question is, will it be done in a week? Will it be done in 2 weeks? But I don't think it'll be much longer than that. I want this to be done for the anniversary stream. We'll see how that goes. I put way too much time and effort into some of these things, honestly. I'd rather do that than be bored, twiddling my thumbs away. Maybe one day some of these things will take off. Maybe they won't. But I would be very... I don't want to make the mistake of not giving it a try. And so there's some big projects after this I still have on the list of things to do. It may not happen immediately, but there are 3 major projects I want to get done this year, and 3 next year that I really want to do as well. If anybody finds interest in that stuff, I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will be available for viewing at some point in the next 2-3 years. Which one has this? I lost track. No, not that. Oh, so it is this one. There we go. Link, object data, perfect. And what the? Vertex problem there. Much better. Just 2 more items to have to try and clean up. 3 more items. Oh, that looks hideous, but it'll work. If you could make a product, something that you've been dreaming about trying to achieve, what would it be? When I was in college, I had this idea that I really wanted to try and create a cinematic version of Treasure Island, one that was historically based. Well, of course, you know, when you're in school, you don't have a whole lot of people to be able to work with, and so sometimes you take on a project that you make a ton of compromises on. Well, I did one such project, and there were a ton of compromises that were done to try and pull it off. It wasn't a very big project, but it was fun to try and do. Unfortunately, it was a dream that never could fully be achieved. But I still wanted to give it a shot, and in the end, I learned a lot from the process. But I did find it interesting that people have very, very, very different dreams. There was one guy I knew, he was certain that the one thing he really wanted to pull off was a silent movie. Now, I'm not a big fan of silent movies. I like to think that the world was made with sound for a reason. But he was all gung-ho about trying to pull this thing off. And he tried. And he put some good effort into it, but it never quite materialized the way he wanted. He spent a lot of time trying to pull it off, as did I. Tried to pull off my short film about Treasure Island, but both of us failed. Both of us found out that when you work with other people, there's going to be a high chance that they're never going to actually fully understand the dream that you have. And so then when you try and get them to join in with that dream, they bail on you. Now, you can't really blame people for not catching the dream, because in the end, it's not their dream. It's your dream. And your dream doesn't really hold much interest for them outside of kind of a curiosity. But it's not bad. It's definitely not a bad thing for people to, and people don't have to come alongside your dream. But it does make it hard to try and materialize if there is that disconnect. So how do you help people to catch the dream? Well, if I knew, I probably would be doing some really big and elaborate sort of films. But I never got to that point, so thus I can't say for certain what is the best way to try and pull that off. But there is one thing I do know, and that is that regardless of who participates in trying to achieve that dream, you have to have meetings. Now, why do I mention about this? Because I know a couple of people that try and pull off a dream without having meetings. Some people think meetings are a waste of time, waste of resources. Why would you be meeting if you could just go out and, do? Well, the reason why you have to do that is because everyone needs to be on the same page. It's like practicing in music. Everyone can play their instrument perfectly. How do you make sure that everyone plays together, though? You have to bring people together. Meetings are like practicing for an orchestra, practicing for a sports team. Anything that requires a meeting is kind of like that. Now, you can over practice. You can also have too many meetings. But you have to have meetings. Otherwise, you're not all on the same sheet. And you're going to find out, when push comes to shove, that other people don't understand the vision, that they don't catch the dream. You can't blame them in that moment. I worked with some folks that did that. They were certain that meetings were worthless until it came to trying to achieve the dream. And suddenly, everything fell apart. Just gotta say, that conversation could have been an email. Indeed. With the group that I was working with, we actually operated off of Teams. Like Teams, the program. And oh my goodness, it went bad. We could have been meeting, and we met once a month. And it got worse and worse and worse. It went from being a 2-hour meeting once a week to being a 2-hour meeting once every 2 weeks, to being a 1-hour meeting once every 2 weeks, then to being a 1-hour meeting once every month. And you could feel people just diverging, the dream being shattered. You have to have meetings, but you don't want to meet too much. Practice, just like meetings, shouldn't take up everything. You have to actually do. You actually have to create. You have to. And some people get scared, honestly. They're like, well, push comes to shove. We have to now create something. How do we do that? If you spend all your time doing meetings, that may seem like an overwhelming concept. And that's what happened with the folks I was working with. Videos were planned, and I had a problem that I was trying to convey multiple times. It's like, guys, we got a big issue. This is not working. And because nobody had meetings, we rushed through all the stuff. And so by the time it came around to me, I was like, hey, we got a problem. And I couldn't get a word in edgewise. I tried sending a couple of messages, and it didn't take. And so then at one point, leadership came by and said, why are you not doing what we need you to do? And I said, well, we got a problem. Oh, they did not like that. They really did not like that. But it was necessary. It was necessary to convey. And sadly, it didn't fix any of the problems once we even knew what the problems were. It's a real shame because we had a moment where all that could have been, all the problems could have been nullified, and we could have actually found success. But instead, it led to bitterness, it led to confusion, and it led to falling outs. To the point of where people started getting told you should leave. Some of them were firings, some of them were just being told to get out. Leadership had no one to blame but themselves. But of course they couldn't do that. The problem was Jenny from Office 3, wasn't it? I knew it. It might have been Jenny from Office number 3. Jenny always had it out for all of us. Well, anyway, long and short, that's something I've been thinking about as of late. Because I've seen a couple of people that are struggling with that. I just remember what it was like to be in confusion for months, only for leadership to get upset. A real shame. Real shame. So this is optimized. We're going to start concealing these branches, bringing back the proxy, and then we'll move on to the next part. I pressed the save button. I wasn't supposed to do that. But while it's stuck in the no response, I'll be right back. Going to get myself some more water. All right. Part of the problem of trying to save this file is that it is fairly big. That's something else I learned. Separate the scenes out. I did not do that because I didn't know how big this project was going to get. It was supposed to be one shot, and it became an entire short. The biggest short that I've made so far. So, one shot to biggest short that I've animated. Fun stuff. But, like I said earlier, it's all been learning process, so I can't complain too much. I really do want to stress, though, when you have a leadership that is cold, that doesn't communicate at all, I gotta say, I've never felt so unnerved. And I've worked for some pretty tough companies. I mean, it's not like I was working for a AAA game studio or something like that. But it is incredibly stressful at some past jobs. The most stressful one probably being Disney. Granted, I was just in the parks. I wasn't doing anything super special, but the tension was so high. The worst company, of course, was Amazon. I hate Amazon. Amazon's the worst. Yes, we're streaming on an Amazon platform, and I still hate Amazon. But that's what happens when you basically burn the bridges with your employees. Well, when you have a harsh management and they start to not communicate, it becomes tense. And with the YouTubers I was working with, that tension grew fast. And you know what's funny? They've been trying to get big projects off the ground. Every one of them has dried up, as far as I know. Because they don't understand how to work as a team. They know how to work as individuals, by all means, but no one knows how to lead with wisdom. There was an argument that I had with the management just before everything fell apart. And the leader came on and said, I don't care what sort of ideas you have. I don't care if you think that somehow we need to change things. I'm the reason that this company has succeeded. I'm the reason why we actually are making a profit. It was all about I. That's not a leader. That is somebody who thinks himself to be the star, the tyrant, the person who deserves, and who everyone else is just your servant. A leader comes out and says, you know, we got a problem. I'm going to walk in your shoes and figure out what the problem is, and then we can fix it. He acknowledges that there's a problem, decides to join and see what it's like on that side, and then act upon it to make it better. That is a leader. That's something, because of the background that I've had, I got to learn that. I got to see it firsthand. Now, I don't claim to be a great leader. In fact, I probably am what you might say as a very ineffective leader. I'm more of an idealist. I know how things should be, but I've never had the ability to lead and see even if it would work. So maybe my ideas are a bit fanciful, but I do know that I've seen leaders that lead in that way. And it works. But it doesn't work if you're worshiping yourself. And that's what sadly, a lot of YouTubers do. They worship themselves. Now, if you're someone who's religious, you don't worship yourself. Because you know that's pride. It's amazing how humbling it can be to realize that you are small, that you have value, but it's not. But you are not the main character. Sure, you may be the one that your story is following, but your life is not designed to be kind of a pleasure trip through life. It's not designed to make yourself look better. It's designed for you to work together with others to try and, honestly, in my personal experience and my personal beliefs, we're supposed to point to God as we are told to do. We're supposed to be bringing honor and worship to Him through our actions. And we do that really the most effectively when we are humble, when we are kind, when we are merciful, when we work together as a team and build each other up. Anyway, I get worried about people I've seen who are still part of that group that are struggling, because I know there's a couple of people that are struggling with some of those projects. That's actually something I need to update. Let's bring in all the trees. Okay, so we have 3 trees. Perfect. So let's come in here. Select. Oh, wrong one. Again. Object data. Perfect. Copy to selected. Copy to selected. Copy to selected. And copy to selected. If you had to, if you had to take the fall for a group, would you? Let's say you're a part of a team, and you realize somebody, you don't know who, somebody messed up horribly, and management comes by. And they are furious. And you look at your coworkers and you know somebody messed up. You just don't know who. It could have been yourself. It could have been someone else. Do you come to bat for them? Is it worth it to come to bat for them? See, a leader sees everyone as being worthwhile. Everyone's perspective is having some sort of merit. Even if you don't agree with it, you got to be able to learn from it. You got to find a way to balance it. A tyrant doesn't do that. A tyrant says, my way is the only way. Doesn't listen to anybody else. And you will see a lot of bigger companies, many times the way that they get profit is by being tyrants. Sadly, that's kind of how life is. People are going to be successful. You can't change that. All you can do is change yourself and be able to do what you can to try and help others. But you're not going to be able to change management necessarily. All you can do is make sure that you yourself are doing what you can to avoid being just like the tyrant. When push came to shove, I had to make a stand. It didn't turn out well. Sometimes you can think in your head, oh, well, it's going to go in this way. I'm going to have to struggle. It's going to not go so well, but it's going to rebound. And it's all going to be better. Even though you know down deep, it's probably not going to happen that way. You still hope for it. Well, I hope for that. And after a span of about 3-4 weeks, I realized, you know what? This kind of redemption arc, where I would think that things would finally start to be fixed, that it wasn't happening. And I went from having the hope of that, obviously things are going to pan out, to suddenly realizing, things aren't working and things won't turn out well. It was a very strange experience because I remember hearing all the stories about where things go well. And I never stopped to think that maybe things were going to go wrong. And you still have to learn to stand despite that. That was a tough lesson. I don't necessarily claim that I know everything about how to do that effectively. I made my stand, but it's amazing how ineffective my efforts were. But it wasn't entirely for naught. See, things can go wrong, and you don't really understand why. And years later, you're like, I wonder if it was actually to teach me a lesson. That's where I'm at. I feel like I was being taught a lesson that I wouldn't have gotten to learn if I had been given the easy way. Maybe one day, it will all become apparent as to why things unfolded the way that they did. But for now, all I can say is this. Despite whether or not things are going to pan out well, you have to do what's right. Even if it means that the stain that you think that you're going to be making is actually going to work or not. Is it easy to take a stand when you know that it's going to turn out well? Or is it harder, but still just as necessary, to stand when you know that the chance of it failing is high? You know what I lost when I took a stand? I lost a good name with the people that I was around. I lost clout, making it really hard to kind of get off the ground. I lost people that I could turn to for assistance, for guidance in this space. I lost a lot of friends. I lost business opportunities. Down deep, I actually thought that all that stuff would be restored. And it didn't happen. But you know what? It was still necessary to do. Even if it could have been done better, it was still necessary to go through that. I don't know as to how all that stuff is going to pan out. But we do know this. No matter what happens in life, it will be used for God's glory. It may be that you go through life and you have frustrations and trials. It's going to happen. But no matter what takes place, it is still up to you to make the most out of it. Say that despite how things panned out, that you'll still stand and do what you can to help others, even if they don't value it. I had a contact that I had with that group for a while, and he mentioned about what was the point of it. Well, maybe it wasn't for them. Maybe it was for me to learn about what bad leadership was. Maybe it was to see how never to be, how to avoid that sort of mentality. Anyway, those are my ramblings for tonight. Something I've been thinking about just because because it's almost been a year since I started really intensely focusing on Castor Craft. And it doesn't quite pan out. There's always something that brings the gears to a halt. These are lessons that are being taught. You can accept them and learn from them, or you can get bitter about them. I want very much to learn from them and not allow myself to go into bitterness. Because it's very, very easy. It's a very slippery slope. And I've seen what that looks like. I've seen what toxicity looks like. I've seen what selfishness looks like. If God wants it to happen, it will happen. If He doesn't, then there's something else that He's probably trying to teach in the process. And in that sense, I'll be grateful for it. May not be happy about it in the moment, but if you take it with a sense of gratitude, it will start to make sense later on. That's going to help a lot on the scene. Okay. You know, I think we're probably going to call it there. We're ending earlier. We started earlier. We're going to end earlier. It's been an hour and a half. Not too terribly long as some of these streams have gone. I know typically it can go into all hours of the night at times, but not anymore. We're trying to get to earlier hours, and it's going to be a little bit of a transition. Some days will be later, some days will be earlier. Tomorrow's going to probably be a bit earlier. It depends. But the goal is to try and go to bed earlier. So, I'm going to be signing off for tonight. Thank you, Bizmaster, for stopping by. And to anybody else who's out there lurking in one of the platforms, would you consider liking or disliking these videos? It'd be much appreciated. Look forward to sharing this animation with you all soon. Won't be too long now from this thing being finished. Now that I've been in the process of optimizing, I think a lot of these things will go faster. Hopefully. All right. Until next time, folks. Have a very pleasant evening and morning, everybody. Be civil to one another, especially if you're a leader. And if you're not a leader, be civil to those around you, including your leader, even if he doesn't quite understand. So that way, you can be able to maybe help be an example, an illustration of how to be wise, regardless of your position. Until next time, folks, have a very pleasant evening.